Well, I'll give the show this. At least they waited until the 5th episode before they started encouraging bad eating habits for the pets. This week, we opened on a little reminder that I totally missed out on a really obvious joke that I should have done, so here it is.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
The episode proper opened with Yui and Rosemary discussing ways they could get closer to Little Miss Ramsey.
パムパムはココネちゃんと一緒に暮らすことになりました。考察ありがとう。
Kokone herself was actually trying to do the same thing with them by reading a book about friendship, which, yeah, I don't even have to make a joke here. Well, other than.
F is for friends who do stuff together.
Still got plenty of leftover SpongeBob memes from the last season. The scene itself almost ended with a really funny bit of her giving her dog a fro.
あらあら、うまくいくといいけれど。
I won't count that, but I will still say you ruined the joke. The next day at school, oh come on.
ですが、遊びに気を取られて。
Gee, I wonder if this not at all familiar looking character with a very distinct design and voice is going to be important later. Between this and the narrations, this show really needs to learn the importance of the concept of subtlety. Also, the darkness voice really does not work with that design. Anyway, Kokone wanted to get closer to Yui, who clearly had a very close male friend in Takumi. Yeah, I think Yuma Uchita ended up inheriting his sister's trait of being a part of a bisexual harem. On that note, though...
ココネちゃん、心の中で大喜び。考察ありがとう。
Fortunately, the scene was kind of saved by her great reply. Hell, Kokone's whole bit of trying to get closer to Yui by doing some pointless research was hilarious and also very charming. It seems to speak a lot about her character, but we'll get more into that in just a bit. Anyway, to Kokone's credit, she did kind of succeed here.
行きたいお店があってね。確かプリティホリック行く。
And so should everyone else, so please go out and buy our products. Sorry, when a show is banging this much, I feel like I have to speak for them. Meanwhile, at the lair of the bundles, Gentle made her definite first appearance in this episode so far, and they went through the usual routine, though I think it's safe to assume that Secretary is just suggesting her preferences rather than their master's selfish pig lady. At the same time, our protagonists met their blatant product placement, I mean the pre-holic, where we got a repeat of the previous scene, though this time with Rosemary, and thankfully no narration. In fact, for what's extensively a rather simple scene, they got a lot across here, like Kokone's anxiety with her failing to respond to a compliment, and Rosemary actually catching on to this, which was all told to us visually with just these little yet very well done expressions. It definitely shows the big differences in the staff this week. So yeah, as I predicted, and in spite of ANN getting it wrong at first, this week's episode saw the introduction of our first secondary writer, Kaori Kaneko. If you don't remember, I wouldn't blame you, as she only wrote 2 episodes of Healing Good, and then pretty much disappeared for all of 2021. The episodes in question, by the way, included that really good Healing Ammo Spotlight episode and the clip show. So while it is a little hard to gauge her abilities just based off of those 2 episodes, I do think she can do some good work, and at least it is a pleasant surprise to have her back. And yet, she's not even the most surprising credit this week. Oh, no. That honor goes to the storyboarder, Hajime Kadoki. For those who aren't too much into arcade games or building master-grade model kits, Kadoki is a legendary designer in the Gundam franchise for, granted, some of the most outlandish giant robots ever, including all the designs for Endless Waltz, in particular Wing Zero Custom. And of course, he has also storyboarded and even directed in the past, mostly for Gundam and other sci-fi anime. And, well, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm the biggest Gundam fan ever. I mean, I don't even own anything from the model kit line that he's named after. I do have to say, I'm more than a little surprised that such a famous mech designer is working on Magical Girl anime, and the Happy Robo isn't even around. Anyway, amongst them trying to sell the one allegedly profitable carryover from the last season, we got some good character bits like Kokone calling Yui by her name, which gave her the confidence to try and emulate what she had seen some other girls do when they shopped at this store. And again, this was all mostly told to us through some great visual storytelling, which just made the following scenes all the more painful when Kokone couldn't read the room.
メイクとか興味なかったからごめんなさい押し付けるようなことしちゃって
Okay, so Now, I have been joking for the last few weeks about Ron not becoming relevant, even though we all know that she is going to become the yellow of this team. But since she is taking so long, it looks like Kokone has stolen her role. Yeah, if you know me, I kind of have to bring this up every time I at least think I see it. Kokone seems to show signs of being on the spectrum, possibly with high-functioning autism. Now, of course, I could be wrong, and I don't want to mislabel anyone, but as someone with Asperger's, I have gone through some very similar experiences as her, like not really minding a little solitude, yet also not turning away from a little more social interaction, even if I do become a bit of an overthinking blabbermouth when it comes to things I'm interested in. But yeah, this trait, especially in recent years, has been more reserved for the yellow cures as a way of justifying their social awkwardness/anxieties, and isn't normally associated with the more confident and controlling blues. Now, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with changing up previously established tropes. In fact, for the past few weeks, I've been kind of begging for it, so I actually do really like this on multiple personal fronts. But at the same time, I do have to ask, what is Ron gonna do when she actually does debut, other than be the butt monkey? Speaking of which, while our characters were making their version of this week's target food, Ron was trying to enjoy some vegetable soup, but... Ah, there we go. Last week felt kind of weird when she wasn't the punchline. Also, while I could do a Gaim reference here, I think I prefer this. But yeah, I also like the detail that Gentle didn't just go for the target food, but also for the full course meal, dessert included, which yeah, you are going to see amongst multiple tables at most restaurants. Anyway, this attack ended up happening at the most inopportune of times, as Kokone was not only still struggling with being quote-unquote normal, but also overheard Rosemary feeling like he was making things awkward between them. Of course, she wanted to clear things up, but duty called. They caught up with Gento, who has to be one of the slowest thieves ever, and she proceeded to create an ubazo out of a whisk, even though I thought for sure she was also going to use this bowl. I mean, come on, Kadoki is storyboarding, so shouldn't there be more Daka? Fortunately, he did bring his skills in for a good fight this week, as Kokone tried to take the lead with little success. As it turned out, she was overcompensating for her previous failures at the shop, and when they were cooking, believing they had let her team hang her, even though that was far from the case. Hey, same girl. In fact, I think that's kind of why I'm so unsociable on Twitter, because I probably do worry a little too much about leaving a bad impression on others. Well, that idea is a toxic cesspool that's best avoided anyways. Anyway, Yui and Rosemary comfort her in a really nice, if a little over-dramatic scene. I think Pom-Pom crying is a little extra. Still, Yui concluded it with what I'm going to assume was a grandma quote, if only for the finger. And as I said, the fight this week was really good, with Kokone switching up her idiot sandwich attack. Granted, I'm not totally sure what she's doing here, but at least it looked cool. And with that, the episode ended with Kokone revealing that the reason she was nervous around Rosemary was because she wasn't sure if he'd like the gift she got for him. Again, same. Though, and there was also even more blatant product placement, but I'll give it a pass since it also involved a little character development too. Yeah, I'll say it, having a different writer makes a big difference. I mean, not to say I think the writing has been bad in any way, but I do think it is important to add more voices to the writer's room to help change things up, particularly in regards to the characters. And yeah, I do like the direction they're going with for Kokone, if only on a personal level. Combine that with some unexpected change-ups to the animation production, and you get an episode that was the good shake-up I was expecting from last week. As I said last week, the basis for a good character was established with Kokone, and she just needed a little extra push to place her beyond her blue cure templates, which they more than accomplished here. Granted, I didn't predict they would go more in a direction associated with a completely different color. Then again, there have been some oddball overthinking blues, so maybe this was just the next step. And again, I do more than anything appreciate a change-up rather than just sticking to a formula. On a more personal level, I really liked how much I ended up relating with Kokone, which, whether or not she has high-functioning autism, again, I don't want to say anything absolute just yet. It still does make her much more likable, and an early contender for my favorite cure of the season. If this was Kaneko's idea, then points to her, and I hope she writes more of this Blues episodes. Though, on a bit of a side note, I do wonder what exactly Ron is going to bring to the table. I mean, obviously, she was never going to be the socially awkward Yellow, and yet now that we have confirmation that her proper debut is still 2 episodes away, it leaves less room for her to grow beyond her reaction phases. In any case though, this was probably my favorite episode so far, though I do have a bit of a bias. It packed a ton of great storytelling that thankfully wasn't ruined by the narrator, who was more guilty of some dumb moments than anything this week. Combine that with some good action from the master of the master grades, and this season is starting to take an interesting shape. If you haven't seen it yet, we actually managed to get a review up for the Snow Princess film from last year in a timely fashion for once. Just to give you an idea of what I thought about it, I'd say it was a bit of a microcosm of its series proper, though I did also think that Tropical Rouge was better overall. But yeah, while I do have a lot of problems with it, I kind of liked it overall, though at the same time I do wish they had put a little more money into it and its series proper, though I'll talk more about that in the overview, which hopefully will be out soon. So look forward to it. And until then though, farewell for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I've got model kits to build. And yeah, I'm more into HDs if you couldn't tell.